Thank you. Let's call this meeting of the Town of Newbury's HR Board Classification Subcommittee to order. Present are
Diane Doyle.
Mark Bleckman,
John Farrar,
Anthony Antico.
thank you all. We expect that Lynn Peabody should be joining us momentarily, and we've invited Chief Lucy to be with us today as it relates to 3 of the job descriptions that fall under the jurisdiction of the police department that require some tweaks, is probably the best way to describe it, maybe some wordsmithing, and we'll look at any of them to determine if there's anything substantive enough that we need to go through a full subclassification, going through the 10 factors. If we don't need to, that will save us all some time. With that in mind, is there a motion open?
So moved.
Second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are in session. Chief Lucy, welcome. Thank you in advance for preparing the 3 documents for us. The descriptions for the emergency communication dispatcher, the shellfish constable, and the assistant harbor master. It's okay with you, Chief. Let's take them in the order in which I mentioned them. We'll start with the emergency communication dispatcher, and maybe the easiest thing is to ask you to just give us kind of the 90-second tour of what has changed in the job description and why you felt it was required to be in front of us today.
Yeah, this is relatively easy. The job description and the duties and responsibilities of that position as classified do not change. This is merely a title change in this, in the existing job description. We are simply removing communications officer and changing it to emergency communications dispatcher. This is more in line with how they are appointed or how they are assigned to the job formally. As an officer, or as just with the terminology officer, it could possibly be construed that that's a process that the appointing authority would be the select board, as they are the appointing authority for officers. As a communications dispatcher, which is more standard, the town administrator is the appointing authority, and it streamlines and cleans up that operation. It makes it more consistent to the job.
Okay, great. So other than the title change,
That's it.
there's really no functional change in terms of duties, responsibilities, role.
Correct.
Okay, pretty straightforward.
More housekeeping than anything else.
Yeah, let me open it up to the board. Any questions of Chief Lucy on this, or?
No, quite straightforward. Just to switch us from the select board to the administrator, and that's facility.
Correct.
Yeah.
I do want to add 2 things. Just looking for the date here. Communications officer. So we first rated this position back in 2016, and the thing that I do want to add is under the position classification, we're also documenting the fact that these dispatchers work sometimes varied shifts. They may work a day shift, an evening shift, or an overnight shift. And because they sit outside the collective bargaining agreement, we, in this job description, document the fact that they're entitled to a rate adjustment, not a differential. A differential, the officers that work different shifts, the officers, patrolmen that work different shifts, receive a differential for the different rates, different shifts rather. This one we're classifying or naming it a rate adjustment because they might be working 3 to 11 or 11 to 7. So we wanted to document that on the job description, that they would be entitled to a rate adjustment based on what shifts they're working.
It's called something different, but it's consistent with the way
Correct.
the police officers are.
Right.
Okay.
So
And
we
that's
wanted-
obviously an inducement to help identify people who are willing to work middle of the night shifts.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. But it doesn't impact the classification itself.
It does not.
No.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Actually, the percentages is still within the scope of the classification as it is, so it doesn't exceed that. So.
Right, okay, great. Okay, anything else, Chief?
Nope, that's it. On
Okay,
that.
in mind, is there a motion to accept the changes as described?
Motion?
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the changes for the emergency communication dispatcher role, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Second position, shellfish constable. Again, Chief, if you wouldn't mind giving us the 2-minute tour of how this has evolved recently and what it's led to in terms of the changes in the job description.
So I'll speak to the job description, some added responsibilities, but as far as the classification, salary classification, I'll leave that to Diane. She can probably explain it better. But the only addition that I'm looking for is kind of in line with what we're going to be talking about, the assistant harbor masters, where when he is not available, he being the shellfish constable, he or she is on vacation or otherwise sick or whatever, we have backup personnel to fulfill the duties and responsibilities of the shellfish constable. That might be on weekends and such like that. With that adjustment, we're looking at the harbor masters, the assistant harbor masters, to fill in those gaps and be able to monitor the activity in the course of their regular duties as a harbor master, the activities that are happening on the clam flats. And with that responsibility, the shellfish constable has to be able to convey and monitor, convey the need to the assistant harbor masters, and then monitor the compliance or the reports back that they give on the activity, and then act accordingly based on their reports on what's happening on the clam flat. So basically, it's to fill holes that might be left when he is not available. We can still make sure that the flats are properly monitored. In the job description, where it's highlighted in red, the only thing I'd like to change, if you refer to where it says the constable shall oversee the assistant harbor masters and direct their activities, I'd like some verbiage that the parameters stay and that as they relate to the duties of monitoring the clam flats or the shellfish duties, because it almost reads, and this is my own thing that I just so I should have caught this when I made this addition, but I don't want it to. I don't think it should read that there's he monitors any activities other than the scope of the shellfish constable. So it almost reads like he oversees the harbor masters and directs their activities in his or her absence, but doesn't really define what those activities are. So if anything you folks can do to kind of clean that up, what makes it recommendations on that, that'd be helpful.
Well, you used the term convey earlier, which I think is an apt term. So would that be a little bit cleaner to say that the constable shall convey certain of his or her responsibilities to the harbor master's department on
as opposed to oversee?
An as-needed basis, as opposed to oversee?
Well, I think, and again, this is more of a question than a statement. My feeling is that the conveyance is a component, but overseeing that conveyance, the follow-through of that conveyance, really should be part of what he does as well. In other words, hey, I'm going to be, for an example, I'm going to be away Saturday. Can you guys, in the course of your patrols, monitor what's happening there and report back to me?
Regarding shellfish.
Regarding shellfish,
yeah.
The field, the clam flats, or those designated areas. Again, the scope being that would normally be in the realm of the shellfish constable.
Right.
I think the overseeing, there should be some added clarification that you don't convey that and then walk away like it's all set. There's got to be you have to close the loop.
What are the broader duties beyond shellfish and clam flats that you're excluding? Otherwise, for the harbor master too.
That would be it. They as far as the way talking to the shellfish constable, what he'd be needing is just eyes on in passing. I take the binoculars, see what's happening there. If there's activity when the flats are closed, the harbor master would be contacting the shellfish constable saying, "This is what's happening. What do you want me to do?" Getting some guidance from them. It wouldn't be the responsibility of the assistant harbor masters to go and enforce, the constables, the shellfish constables' requirements, unless they were asked to. I wouldn't want painted into a corner where they would not be able to do anything there, because my feeling is, as we read down through the job description and the requirements, the educational requirements, for the harbor masters, which we'll get to, they will have taken the familiarization course for to be a shellfish constable, have the certification. So it stands to reason if they have the certification, and if they're doing the standing in, they'll also have the authority. So, but that would be all under the supervision as it relates to shellfish constable of the shellfish constable.
Right.
I was going to suggest that seems more of a coordination scenario than anything else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But, you know, again, I don't know, I think we should have some forward thinking in this, in the sense that if the shellfish constable becomes, you know, incapacitated or sick, or an extended leave, or extended, you know, void of his being able to perform those duties, that the assistant harbor masters, even at a temporary basis, are qualified and expected to fill that gap as needed. So I think that we really want to make sure that the job description of the shellfish constable is very clear, that the shellfish constable is responsible for the conveyance of his needs and the follow through to make sure that it's being taken care of, you know, and any issues are being addressed. So he, you know, he should be making sure that this, whatever he's putting out, comes back.
And abundantly clear that he has the education and schooling and the authority that goes with it.
Correct.
Okay.
Can I throw out a suggestion?
Sure,
And then
sure.
maybe we could wordsmith it from there?
Yeah.
The shellfish constable shall schedule the assistant harbor masters and monitor and direct their activity on the Newbury clam flats in his or her absence. What is the follow-up piece that you're,
On the shellfish constable position. Can you
Yeah, I
copy?
didn't print them. Do you have extra copies?
I can-
No? I can look them on my phone. I can look at them.
So is that something you're proposing as verbiage?
I'm throwing it out there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to basically repeat back to you what you're saying, and I don't know if I've captured everything.
This is, it's kind of, well, not really, and I'll
Okay.
tell you why I think that might be problematic. And this is the struggle I'm having, that hoping we can figure out. I don't want to become confusing with the assistant harbor master's answer to the harbor master. And now if you have two people directing schedules, and two people with expectations, that might be problematic. So I really want to make it really, I think what we want to do is really get that right down to only as it relates to shellfish constable duties, and only as it, you know, in addition to, you know, the normal patrol, you know, in addition to the normal patrols of the assistant harbor master, these are the expectations. And I think removing the shellfish constable, again, I don't know if this is helpful or hurtful, but I'm kind of jumping back and forth to two discussions, but I kind of have to, because there very possibly, maybe even probably, will be occasions where we don't, you know, the shellfish constable will not be, you know, maybe move on, maybe it'll be a vacancy, maybe he'll be an extended, you know, sickness, maybe an extended vacation, whatever, that we want to make sure we can backfill that position with somebody qualified, and in this case, we will have pre-trained the assistant harbor masters to fill that void. So that'd be part of their job description, the ability to do that, but in the same respect, trying to make it so that the shellfish constable isn't their supervisor. The shellfish constable, his responsibility is just to convey to them, I'm going to be away. If you're out and about, and you're, you know, and you're on patrol, please monitor what's happening on the clam flats,
But the
document and report back.
But the shellfish constable remains responsible for the.
Follow through of their
Okay,
reports.
so how about verbiage, something like, the shellfish constable shall convey to the assistant harbor master, but be responsible for all of the above duties in his or her absence. By saying the above duties, we're being specific to the shellfish constable duties, not anything else, right?
Well,
John, excuse me, if you just look at the second paragraph above this, you seem to be talking about the very thing, the very issue. The constable shall coordinate duties to the assistants to carry out his or her duties when the constable has a day off or is unable to perform his or her duties.
And that's interesting because it's funny, again, that was constructed in the sense that we were going to have assistant shellfish constables. Not, so again, that's a very, very good point, because that's a little confusing. You could almost,
You could combine the two. in
you
one.
almost can combine the two, but that's not the same assistants. They're not, that's not reference, it should actually, that word, that's a very good point, that should be added.
Added to it.
Yeah,
That's a great
shellfish,
point, Tony.
yeah,
So maybe
shellfish
the-
constable
The
assistant.
constable shall coordinate duties to his or her assistants and/or the assistant harbor master. Right, because it would be either his or her assistants or, the shellfish, or the assistant harbor master. You're really sort of asking both parties to do the same thing in the absence of the shellfish constable.
The harbor master is higher grade than the shellfish,
No, the constable is the overseeing.
okay.
They're
Yeah,
actually
I think
they're two different entities.
Yeah.
I'm sensing your question has more to do with if the assistant to the constable steps in the absence of the constable, the assistant to the constable then comes under the aegis of the assistant harbor master for that interim period where the constable is missing in action.
And the thing is too, and this might have to be more defined too, the scope of what that expectation of assistance is not any enforcement action.
Yes.
It's just monitoring. So, and that, again, I mean, that might be something we have to wordsmith a little bit. So, because I really don't think it'd be appropriate to incorporate the harbor master assistants in that paragraph, because there's a lot more responsibilities that go with it as outlined in that paragraph. Night raids and road stops, pollution, all that stuff. That's not what they're going to be doing. So I really kind of think, I think there should be clarification that in that long paragraph, it should be assistant constable, the shellfish constables. Make that clear. That's for the assistant if they ever exist, if they ever get hired, cover it. And then that red paragraph that we're discussing here, somehow we have to make sure, I believe, that it's the scope of the expectations are defined as monitoring, not action, unless otherwise directed by the shellfish constable. But I mean, just to keep that open there. But you follow? Somehow I feel like I'm rambling a little bit. But
Well, I just don't think we don't want to overthink it.
I feel like I'm dancing close to
Yeah.
overthinking.
The supervisory line at the top of the page supervises the assistant harbor masters.
Right, when we put that in there, we added that because we're adding that he is, and maybe we don't want to put that in there because he's actually not supervising the assistant
Yeah.
harbor masters. Maybe we don't want that in there at all.
Yeah, and
He's not-
I knew this was going to be a lot of conversation. I'm glad we're having it because it's really kind of a tough one, only because that's exactly right. I think we want to be very careful. We don't want to have them, as I talked this out especially, we don't want the shellfish constable having a supervisory role with the assistant harbor masters.
Yeah, it's just the opposite.
It's just the opposite.
Yeah.
We want to clarify that, and I'm glad, that's a very, very good point. So that should be stricken and kept, the same way
Check that out.
as it was
Yep.
before the strikeout. And and just that addition.
We don't technically have an assistant shellfish constable position. There is no assistant shellfish constable currently. So why that's even in there is
Because there was talk that was going to happen.
right, but usually I mean, you could leave it in there with the understanding that at some point there would be, but currently there isn't, so.
If there's no harm in it being there, rather than have to circle back and do this again if we make that position.
What are the chances that there is going to be one in the future?
The way things are going, probably pretty good. And we're at the point now where we're trying to resolve that problem just for lack of personnel by utilizing the assistant harbor masters for that position.
Yeah.
So the need is there, but it's just, we haven't got to the point where we can do something.
So the bullet point that says the constable shall coordinate duties to the assistants, we should leave in working under the assumption that at some point he or she will have assistants.
Well, we should say
But
shellfish.
I think yes, I think that paragraph should stay there.
Okay, but then we get to the original point, two below that, the constable shall oversee the assistant.
I
That's the one you want to play.
The problematic word is oversee.
Yeah, I think you're right. I like the convey,
Yeah.
but somehow I want to figure out how we can end the loop.
Coordinate.
Coordinate's a great word.
Yeah.
Yep,
You need the relationship.
yes,
And not- okay.
without the supervisory element. So it should be very, very clear what
Right.
the scope of their request is from the Shellfish Constable of the Assistant Harbor Masters. And that's simply to monitor activity and report on activity of the clam flats. And that probably could be put in there and that would suffice.
It
Yeah,
would
if they
be
were
simple.
that- 'cause that's all they're doing. That's all they're doing.
It's
The claim form.
simply,
Yep.
the constable has the responsibility to coordinate with the assistant harbor master in the direction of duties needed to be completed in his absence. It's just an information line.
You could even, if you, actually, this just occurred to me too, that this might really solve any future issues. Somehow have it in there, and other activities as approved, as discussed through the harbor master and the shellfish constable, as coordinated between the harbor master and the shellfish constable. So now what you have is, by design, is if the shellfish constable says, hey, look, I need somebody measuring clam sizes, at the town landing because I'm going to be gone this weekend. That's a busy weekend, whatever. Well, that's not in the scope of monitoring the flats. So if you have that catch-all where, if I'm the constable, the shellfish constable saying, I need these guys to help me with something else. I'm not directing them to do anything. I'm going to you coordinate the harbor master, which happens to be me. We work it out, and then I direct my assistant harbor masters to either do or not do. Either I agree or I don't, but at least it's a supervisory decision between the two organizations to expound on the responsibilities.
So it's not a chain of command. That's what you're trying to get away from, or even the
I'm trying to keep the chain of command intact, yeah.
We have
Right.
some verbiage you got
I
comfortable
think
with?
John was as close to, do you have that written down?
I remember what I said, constable shall coordinate with the assistant harbor master in the direction of duties required.
The only thing I change is not the assistant harbor master, the harbor master.
I mean, the harbor master.
Yes, okay.
In all those duties that need to be sufficiently covered during his period of absence.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
Because that way there, you're not deviating from the chain of command. The two supervisors are making decisions. There might be things that say, no, I can't have them doing that, and I don't want them doing that. And now we have to work out a different solution. And now you don't have the assistant harbor masters getting direction from two people.
Roger.
Okay.
So that was perfect.
You want it?
Write down what
You
he
get
said.
that?
I think
Good
so, I'm trying.
Let's just have, if Diane can read it back to us, and if we're comfortable, we can vote on that language change.
Okay.
Okay, oh God. The shellfish constable shall coordinate with the harbor master. And then I have all duties and responsibilities sufficiently needed to cover in his absence, but I know that's not exactly what he said.
Is
As
this,
required.
is this going in as one to replace or edit one of the bullets that are already in place?
It's the
And which one
highlighted, it's
would
the
that be?
The highlighted one.
the highlighted bullet.
The essential duties. The essential
Second from the
duties-
bottom,
The essential
constable
duties
shall oversee.
that need to be supervised in
In
his
his
absence.
absence, okay.
okay?
Did you find
Yeah.
it?
You're comfortable with
Well,
that
so
language?
here it
Just
is.
the second from the bottom.
The constable shall
Constable shall.
report his or her.
Shellfish constable
his or
shall
her
coordinate
assistance
with the
out. No,
harbor
that's not
master.
it.
The scheduling of assistant harbor
Okay,
masters?
so shall
No, no
oversee the
scheduling.
assistant
Get that?
harbor
Any
master
duties and
directed activity in
responsibilities
his or her
required.
absence?
Right.
Any duties
Okay.
and responsibilities
That's the areas.
officially required
Yeah, okay.
In his
that's
or her
fine.
absence.
His or her absence.
will be covered in his or her
Yes.
absence. Okay, I got it. All right.
Okay, we're gonna read that one more time and then vote on that language change. Thank you.
The shellfish constable shall coordinate with the harbor master any duties and responsibilities sufficiently needed or required to be covered in his or her absence.
Is there a motion?
The completion of the several duties required, the completion of the several In other words, there needs to be an act word in there.
Right, that's what we're missing. Coordinate with the harbor master.
The completion of the several duties that need to be,
Assignment of personnel.
Facilitation of the, yeah, facilitation, somehow that can fit in there.
yeah,
Facilitation,
Of
for those activities need
Staff.
to be completed in his or her
Personnel.
absence.
yeah, of John just said again.
Say it again. John, one more time.
The constable shall
Coordinate.
coordinate with the harbor master in the completion regarding those duties that need supervision during his absence in his or her absence.
Require instead of need.
Required, better word.
Required.
Got it, Diane?
I think so.
Yeah, read that one back, it sounds kind of
I
choppy.
can, you know what? I can watch it on the tape.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept that language change?
I'll make the motion.
A second?
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Thank you, John. And we also talked about,
Actually, can I just add one thing? Sorry, we
Yeah.
didn't get back to the fact that this position is now becoming a salary exempt position
Right.
because the position itself is moving from 28 to 40 hours. I think on page 2, it's going from 28 to 40 hours. It's a full-time position. And the job is such that the hours are vary depending upon when the clam flats are open. So he is required to work the number of hours and the schedule of hours when it makes sense. So he's directing basically the operation of that department, and that's why it was recommended that it go to salary exempt.
technically it's
Because he
not.
doesn't work a set schedule, set hours, because the clam flats vary.
Right. And it also is it's being designated as a department head.
Correct, and
Right.
he also may need to work additional hours
Right.
to cover the times where the flats are open. It's my
Just-
understanding of why it was being presented as a salary exempt
Right.
position.
But again, doesn't impact the classification range.
Right.
That's right.
Okay.
And you guys gonna love me, can I circle back on one quick thing?
Yep,
When I look at who the Shellfish Constable reports to, I think maybe just add in there, we did that beating up that language, just add coordinating with the harbor master and the chief of police. Since he reports to the chief of police, in this case it's the same person, but he not always be the same person.
Right.
But I think that since it's two entities, he's using the resources of of another entity, the supervisor, he has to coordinate with, he has to get permission from his supervisor, which is the chief of police, to act on having another agency work on his behalf. So I think that somehow in there, you coordinate, I think it's very simple, coordinate with the chief of police and the harbor master, and then everything we said.
okay, so are you proposing that to be under reports too?
No, that's already said. I'm talking about with that whole thing.
And adding chief of
that
police
whole-
before harbor master.
Yes,
Oh.
yeah. down
Chief of
forward.
police and harbor
And
master.
harbor
Got
master,
it.
yes. So that's something for you, Nancy, not that
Okay.
it would have happened, but again, forward thinking,
Yeah.
who's gonna be in place down the line, that's not.
Two
just-
separate entities,
Yes,
Okay.
two separate entities.
That's wordsmithing. I don't think we need to vote on that.
Okay.
language.
Lynn, did you have a question on that salary exempt?
Yep, is there a change in salary?
There is.
Okay, and,
It's going from hourly to salary.
yep, is there a change in the dollar amount?
It was set for the fiscal year, so it is, yes.
There is a change in, so
We
per hour
we
is
reset.
$20 an hour versus now we're going to salary exempt, it's gonna be, $40,000 a year.
Well, yes, it will be a salary.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that was the reasoning behind it as well, because there may be times when he has to work more than 40 hours.
Right.
To
Yeah.
cover. So,
His schedule is based on the tides.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's double tides, and he's all over the place with that.
Okay, and so independent thinking, all of the things that are going to fit in with an exempt
Yes.
position? Okay.
this role has continued to develop over the years. I don't want to speak for you, but from what I remember, it's gone from a very small, so many hours per week to now it's 40 hours per week. It's becoming a much more comprehensive function within the town, and it has moved from hourly to a salaried position with the understanding that, you know, he has to, I think that's been one of the things that I didn't really fully understand, is that he doesn't work a set schedule, he's out on the flats when he needs to be.
Yep.
So yes, I think it meets all of the criteria of a salary exempt position. It is going from hourly to salary.
Is this position going to have to be posted? Or is there an incumbent?
It's currently, it's being moved from the person who was in there as an hourly position.
Okay, so we have an incumbent that is going to
Yes.
stay with
Right.
the
Yes.
position?
Right.
Okay.
It's not a vacancy.
And that's
Sorry?
sort
It's
of,
not a vacancy.
Okay,
yes.
okay, thank you.
Okay,
Good?
yep.
Good.
Okay, the third and final position is Assistant Harbor Master. And Chief, if you want to, again, just take us on a quick tour of how your thinking has evolved on this in terms of the job description and what substantive changes, if any, you're thinking about.
Again, I think circling back a little bit to stay in continuity with what we just discussed, the first highlighted monitor document activity on the Newbury clam flats at the direction of the Newbury Shellfish Constable. I think probably in light of our past conversation should be just ending it there at the direction of the Newbury Harbor Master, because the direction's always going to be from the Newbury Harbor Master if we have the communication between the Shellfish Constable and the Harbor Master. So basically keeping one supervisor, the Harbor Master.
So is this, John, is this in the summary, Assistant Harbor Master oversee the safety and efficiency of boating operations
Yes.
on all waterways within the town of Newbury, period? Is that in the summary, or was that something else that you were reading from?
Okay, I'm reading the summary. I think the end of the summary, actually, too, Assistant Harbor Masters provide support to the Newbury Shellfish Constable as requested by the Harbor Master. Or as needed, as directed, actually as directed by the Harbor Master. I really think we should keep on defining that chain. So I think for this job description, the expectation is when you take this job, you're going to be realizing I might have to perform some of the duties and responsibilities of the Shellfish Constable, but that's under the direction, not of the Shellfish Constable, but under the direction of at the direction of the Harbor Master.
So it now reads, the Assistant Harbor Masters provide support to Newbury Shellfish Constable as directed by, as opposed to requested.
Yes, as
As
directed by.
directed by the Harbor Master.
Correct.
Do we need to, in order to be consistent with what we said earlier, it should be the Harbor Master or the Chief of Police?
No, because the Chief of Police would not instruct them, the Harbor Master would. The Chief of Police will instruct the Harbor Master, just so happens to be the
Right.
same person in this particular case
Right.
now. And then, I would not go to a firefighter and say, I want you to go do
Yeah,
this. I
okay.
would talk to the chief and say, hey, can you have him do this?
Okay, so that second sentence again, Assistant Harbor Masters provide support to the Newbury Shellfish Constable as directed by the Harbor Master.
Correct.
Any thoughts on that language?
Clean,
Very
very clean.
All right. Are there
Is
any
there
other
ever-
changes?
Sorry,
Go
is
ahead.
there ever going to be a time when the harbor master is not going to be available, and so somebody else is going to direct some of those activities?
Again-
When you say directed by the harbor master, is there gonna, that's very defined, definitive. Should we kind of loosen it up just a little bit in case, somebody wins the
Maybe.
lottery and doesn't come to work tomorrow?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I
Okay.
think by design, when you're at that level of responsibility, you're available. And if you're not available, you delegate somebody that will be.
Well, I was gonna say, to Lynn's point, that maybe you should just say directed by the Harbor Master or the Harbor Master's designee. So that.
Okay, that does it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
should there be a vacation situation or somebody's Harbor Master out ill, whatever it might be.
Is there a chain of
the harbor-
command? If the harbor master were to die in a car accident tomorrow morning, is there a chain of command?
Usually stuff like that always goes to the chief of police.
So then why wouldn't it say under Lynn's question, by the harbor master or in his absence, the chief of police?
Because I don't know if that's always gonna be the case. I wouldn't paint it into that corner.
It's the same-
Understood.
It's because
or-
everything's
or the
always a
designee.
case by case. If there's going to be that kind of an issue, everyone's gonna be made clear, this is what we're doing. It might not be the chief, it might be the fire chief, it might be somebody else that's available. You know, so I wouldn't paint the what ifs too much into a corner. I'm personally happy with the, you know, just having it at the direction of, you know, the harbor master.
Period.
Because everything, yeah, period, because everything else self-corrects. It's
Okay.
the responsibility of the harbor master to make sure that he has somebody covering his position. You know, if he's gonna be that kind of indisposed, like as the chief, I would never just leave without having, you know, made it clear the deputy chief's in charge, you know.
Yeah, but to Lynn's point, isn't it clean if we just say, you know, the harbor master or the harbor master's designee? Which is open-ended, because on those rare occasions where the harbor master is not available on a time-sensitive matter.
The only problem I have with that, again, maybe I'm overthinking.
Yeah.
Who's the designee? When is the designee? I was the designee last week. You know, I mean, it's just like, it seems to me it could be interpreted. You know, you were the designee last weekend for whatever reason, so you must be. You know, it's okay for me to do what you're saying to do now. I just don't know if that's necessary. I don't know if you just keep it as the harbor master. You know,
So, you know, this is kind of an interesting scenario, you know, talking about these positions. I
Yeah.
think it's so fun. But
oh, I'm glad you think so.
that's because I just go out and walk the walkway. But, you know, if you have, so a lot of this stuff might happen on the weekends, right? When people are available to go out into the water areas. And so, you know, all of a sudden, it's Saturday afternoon and somebody needs something. And the harbor master is nowhere to be found, you know, on vacation, you know, off boating himself, whatever. And so, you know, how are we gonna get an issue addressed at, you know, that particular time?
It's really, actually, that's very, very simple, and I'll explain how. If, for whatever reason, I'll use my department as an example. If I'm indisposed, if I'm leaving, I'm on vacation,
Yep.
everybody knows that I'm on vacation. And the deputy chief knows that I'm on vacation, the deputy chief knows that she's in charge. And it's the integrity and the responsibility of the position itself that if the deputy chief walked up to, it could be, she might be, I'll even go one further and say it's a sergeant. That, you know what, you're the senior sergeant, we're both not available for whatever reason, you're in charge. If that sergeant wants something done, that sergeant's gonna say, I got the delegation of authority from the chief. And just by him saying that is enough. That person should be saying, okay.
So-
Because if he says that, and it's not true, that's a career-altering decision.
How
So-
That's all well and
available?
good, but in this particular case,
It would be the same thing.
who, let's say it happens 20 minutes from now.
Yeah.
And the harbor master's unavailable. Who handles it?
It's an institute. I look at the word harbor master not as a person. I see it as the institution.
Yes, exactly.
That's why I asked you chain of command. Spending
Yeah.
10 years in the military, as you just iterated, there is somebody to step up on a bottom-up basis.
Yeah.
And I think that directed by the harbor master period is cleaner. We're overthinking it, the sentence is not.
Right.
And the clarity there is that it's an institution and the assistant harbor master would take over.
Exactly. To your point, the answer, maybe I should have
How
stated
about,
this
how about
quickly.
the office of the harbor master, which broadens it a bit?
I wouldn't. I'd say it's a position, it's a chain of command, it's a harbor master. What I would suggest, to your point, and it's a good point, what would be the standard thing? It's exactly what John just said. The senior assistant harbor, like in this case, Dan Brown, he would be the one that would step up, and just by him saying, I have it. The harbor master said he's away, I have the delegation of authority in his absence, and he starts making decisions. That's enough in my world. I don't know if it's.
Okay, let me ask one quick little question.
Yeah.
If I need the harbor master for anything,
I'm right
me,
here.
Joe, and I'm not sitting in the
How can I
room.
help?
How do I get in touch with the harbor master?
Everything goes through the comm center.
Through the what?
The
Communications.
dispatch. You call the PD. That's a communication center for all stuff. So you would call the communication, like even if you're on our website, all the numbers, everything points to the Newbury Police Department, the dispatch center. And so they would ring there, the answer would be there, the emergency communications dispatcher would answer, you'd say what you need, and that person would have the availability to call, notify the harbor master to deal with whatever has to be done.
Okay, so if I'm like coming in,
24/7.
two boats collide coming in off the water, I call 911?
Yep, 911 is
Okay.
gonna get you right there.
Okay.
If it's an emergency like that, of course. If it's just about, hey, this M number, this boat just was going too fast to the waves and I want to complain, you'd call the communication center, or you look on the website and you'd see, and it would ring there, and she would, or he would connect you to the harbor master. You get the message, and if it's non-emergency like that, but needs something, that needs to be
Okay, but I
done.
could still call 911?
Yep, you still can call 911,
Okay,
always
just
call
say,
911.
yep.
I was witness, Lynn, to a circumstance. I was in a private home where, and I don't want to mention private names, he's a director of a local institution. He's also in the call business for sea rescue. And the dispatcher on Morgan Avenue called him, and he stood up in his mid-report location and went running to the to the beach, and where they pick up the boats and do their rescue task. Typically, somebody ran out of fuel and called a complaint of foolish lack of seamanship, etc. And it was his purview, his responsibility to tow him in.
There's no call goes unanswered,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and everything gets sorted at the dispatch.
Okay,
They notify the Coast Guard if it's that type of a situation. They'll notify our harbor master, Newburyport's harbor master, Ipswich's harbor master. We get all hands on deck, no pun intended, when there's an emergency like that, so.
Right.
But to your point, anything that goes on in town, any emergency, always starts there and the resources.
I've called into 911 on the highway if I see something on the highway. And so, I say, it's not an emergency, but I see such and such on 95 North,
Yep.
by Amesbury.
Yep.
And so they take a little bit of information and then transfer me to wherever I need to go.
Yeah, what that is that a recently or?
Yep, yeah.
So,
Couple of
because
times
what
recently.
happens is, we're part of it, not to digress, but we're part of phase 2 on 911. So it actually, all 911s that come on a cell phone, it triangulates location and sends it to that jurisdiction.
Okay.
And there's some discrepancy areas like 95 and stuff where you might not get that department, but the transfer would happen. Or we transfer to the state police or whatever. But
Okay, and
generally,
we did
that's-
digress, but I think that that's part of my questions. How accessible is the harbor master? And are we calling, 325-0583 to the harbor master office? Or are we getting routed, some other way? To John's point, okay, we can just use the office. We can go through dispatch and it can go to the office of the harbor master.
Right. Most efficient manner.
Okay.
Yep, that's what happens.
So again, in terms of the language change on the summary, if I'm reading correctly, John, you feel pretty strongly we don't need anything other than the second sentence, which now reads, the assistant harbor masters provide support to the Newbury Shellfish Constable as directed by the harbor master.
Yes,
Period.
I personally think
Okay.
that is sufficient and clean.
Perfect.
Okay, rather than going point by, are there any other language changes you've proposed in this job description before we vote?
Yeah, just in the red there, just changing that again at the direction of monitor and document activity on the Newbury Clam Flats at the direction of the Newbury Harbor Master, not the Shellfish Constable.
Harbor master as opposed to shellfish.
Correct.
Okay, I didn't get that one.
With the idea
Of
that,
the Newbury, at the
Harbor.
direction of the,
Newbury Harbor Master.
correct.
okay,
Okay, it's pretty straightforward.
okay.
Any other word changes, John?
No word changes on the description, but when we get to education and certification, like duties and responsibilities in the summary, I think we're good there, we're
Yeah.
solid. And if we jump to the education and certification required,
Yep.
this is where, I believe we can, whatever the scale is, but there's an added educational component
Mhm.
that may or may not affect the classification.
Okay, let's
I
talk
don't
about
know.
that.
But
And this is a must-have, not a would like to have.
this is a must-have. We have,
Okay.
To fully make these persons be able to
This is added here.
sufficiently perform the
Second bullet
duties
point
we're
is
adding,
being added.
Yep.
this is what they should have.
Okay, and this is all new.
New to them, correct?
Yeah, it has not been a requirement prior.
Correct, this is brand new.
Okay,
To this position,
And that's the second bullet?
yes.
yeah,
This is a big
possess
long one.
or acquire within 1 year of appointment.
Ooh, excuse me.
That should be a Q rather than a C in acquire.
Oh, yeah.
Shane.
Oh, yeah.
Shane.
Come on, Tony, where are you?
Oh, no, I
Oh,
I
yeah.
had made a note. I had made a note.
We need proof of life on that.
He hasn't lost his
In my
fastball.
defense, I just cut and pasted them over here. Let me see if I have to fix that in the other one too, hold on.
And do you have
So I-
education fellow?
I do, yep.
Okay, any other changes other than the addition of those requirements, John?
No,
Okay,
So if we were to look just specifically at the education piece,
right.
in the grading that we did of this position, assistant harbor master, correct? It was listed as a 2. So if we look at education,
A 2 is high school graduate. A 3 is formal training beyond a high school diploma.
this may include diplomas, certificates related to various occupations and/or specialties.
that sounds good.
It would seem that it feels more like a 3 to me. I don't think it rises to the level of a 4. A 4 is completion of a 2-year post-secondary college degree. And that's not what we're looking for here, right? We're looking for certifications
I think it's
beyond
good.
high school?
Yeah,
Is that
it's
correct?
Yep.
So the question is, moving the educational factor from a 2 to a 3, whether that would impact the classification.
It does.
It's somewhat complex, is pretty much, I mean, I've been through the offshore training for the marine fisheries in the Maritime Academy, and that's definitely going to take you to a 3.
All right, so let's, before we get to what that change means, let's just make sure everybody's comfortable with that.
Yep.
So, Tony, Lynn, any thoughts on that? If we look at the education factor, it was rated as a 2, which is high school graduate.
Yep.
Now with these additional requirements, the question is, are we comfortable bumping it up to a 3, which is formal training beyond the high school diploma, additional courses beyond high school equivalent to 1-year full-time post-secondary education, and/or diplomas, certificates related to various occupations and/or specialties? That would seem to be where this fits in. People feel comfortable moving it from a 2 to a 3?
Yeah, with that additional bullet in red, you know, certification as a shellfish constable or per Mass General Law, chapter such and such. You know, that's pretty specific.
Yep.
Yeah, so, yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Is there any other discussion on that?
What does it do to the salary? I mean,
Well, before we get to that, let's vote on whether we want to bring it from a 2 to a 3. And then we'll see what happens with the salary. So
okay,
that's what we always do, is vote on
Yep.
the factor first. So,
okay.
any other discussion? Is there a motion?
Motion
And what's the motion?
to move it to a 3.
To move it from a 2 to a 3 in the factor for education. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
So I think the next part of the discussion is salary, isn't it? I mean, we talk about the salary as a board.
Well, we'll talk about the classification range.
I have to
Yes.
finish the thing first, see where it lands and give you the range.
Yes.
But not to open another Pandora's box, does the added responsibility in this instance change any of the consequence of errors? Would there be any, are there any other factors before we finish this, that consequence of errors or independent thinking that would go into this harbor master, assistant harbor master, filling those duties on a temporary basis? Would that change those factors? Should we look at any others?
I didn't sense any, but.
I don't think so, because it's more of an observe and report type
Yeah,
of capacity right
yeah.
now.
And we also talked earlier about the fact that, as we always do, what we try to do is avoid making decisions on what we describe as one-offs.
Yeah.
In other words, if this is additional responsibilities 40 hours a week, every week of the year, it's one thing. If we're talking about something that might occur 3 or 4 times in the course of a year, or half dozen times in the course of a year, we try not to let that influence our thinking in terms of the overall consequence of errors or responsibilities. So,
And any
We try to
actions
be
are gonna be at the
consistent.
direction of somebody, a
Yeah,
supervisor
right.
anyway.
Yeah, certification is a benchmark of competence. And when one is certified in a very specific competence, they're expected to know the job and know it well. Like any letter that follows any name, whether it be, Master Studies or DMD or,
right.
it's a function of your understanding the intricacies of your position in which you're expected to know and expected to perform.
Okay, I just
Okay.
figured it was worth.
Yeah, no, it's a
Yeah, it
good
is.
point.
Good
Okay.
point.
So we've gone from a 2 to a 3 in the education, and it doesn't look like there are any other factors we have to consider here.
Right,
So Diane, tell us what that does to the grid.
so it moves from a 12.2 to a 13.2. And what the 13.2, so if you look at the classification schedule, the salary range goes from, the 12.2 salary range was $14.34 per hour to a high of $22.20. That was at a 12.2. The current rate of pay is $19.32 before the acceptance of the changes to the job description. At a 13.2, it goes from $15.75 to $24.41.
So almost $1.50 more an hour on both the low end and the high end?
Approximate?
Approximately.
Yeah.
So that gives John, within his department budget, the ability to decide, once this is approved, if those people that are filling that position warrant an
Right.
increase in the hourly rate. And it seems to me that he would have sufficient room to do that at 13.2 with a range of $15.75 to $24.41.
How many people are in the position currently?
Right now, we're talking about 2 positions, possibly, 2 personnel, possibly 3.
Okay.
2 to them.
Okay, change in hours, change in the number of hours?
No, the actually hourly won't change. It shouldn't change.
The number of hours?
Yeah, the number, you know what, that's a tough one to answer. I'm assuming it won't, but again, once we dovetail them into the responsibilities, and if it doesn't align with what they're already doing,
Yep,
then it's added. It'll be added hours for them, so.
Right, and that's something we don't typically take up
Right, yeah,
as a board. It is what it
yeah,
is.
exactly.
Right.
I'm just wondering what the impact of these changes are going to have on the employee pool. Are we now going to be bumping up against any other positions similarly placed in that employee pool? So if I get some kind of an increase based on these changes, how is that going to affect my coworker? Is it going to? I'm just asking.
In this particular case, I mean, I can't speak to the employees of the town,
Yep,
but, staying in the scope of the harbor masters, no, it doesn't, adversely, it doesn't affect them at all. I mean,
Okay.
the ones that, there's only those 2 going up, yeah,
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
or 3, yeah.
And as we always do at the end here, before we settle on it, we like to look at kind of to your point, other positions in town
Yep.
that come into the same classification on the grid. With 13.2, was it?
Yes.
Is that the new,
Yep.
that's
Yep.
what the new
Yes.
The new one.
classification would be?
Yep.
So, Diane, can you give us an example about the 13.2s in town?
So it would be technical services librarian, it would be a call firefighter, code enforcement officer, which we don't currently have somebody in that position, circulation department library associate, and also the administrative assistant for the police department and the administrative assistant for the DPW. But you have to keep in mind, that's a $9 range,
Right.
and various positions within that department also take into consideration the fact that you have some people who have just started with the town, some people who have been here for a significant amount of time, might have additional, work experience because they've been here, so that's a pretty significant range.
Right.
Um,
But we also to give it sort of the gut instinct
Yep,
purview. You know, does it feel right? And sometimes it's tough to compare the apple to the orange, a circulation librarian to an assistant harbor master, but I think you said one of the people on that list was a call firefighter. Kind of feels
You know, the ratings
comfortable
go
for me.
for different reasons, too.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah.
education's gonna, I mean, the ratings land
Right.
for different reasons where they land.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be anything out of whack here, is the
No.
point.
No.
Yeah, it seems
So-
reasonable.
What's interesting is I'll just add that at a 12.2, the harbor master helper and the harbor master assistant sat within the same pay grade. They also sat within the same pay grade as a Meals on Wheels driver and the van driver. So it does seem to me with this added responsibility, it does make sense that it would jump to a 13.2.
okay.
That person has to apply himself to a different standard, once that certification comes behind his name or her name.
Right.
He has to know what he's looking for, and he's accountable for what he sees.
That's right,
Absolutely.
expected, expectations.
So given that, is there a motion to accept the two changes we made in the job description language, as well as the change in rating from a 12.2 to a 13.2? Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Bada bing, bada boom.
I think,
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Good one.
Second?
Second.
any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.